Have you ever looked at your hairbrush or your pillow in the morning and just felt that little pang of worry? It's a really common concern, but sometimes it can be a sign of something more. Today, we're going to talk about the connection between hair loss and a hormonal condition called PCOS. So let's get right into it.
Here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll figure out what's normal shedding versus something you should actually be concerned about. Then, we'll dive into the hormonal side of things with PCOS. After that, we'll look at how doctors actually figure this out, what you can do to manage it, and finally, we'll talk about the most important next step you can take.
All right, so first things first, all that hair you're finding everywhere, should you be worried? Let's draw a really clear line between what's totally natural and what might be your body's way of sending you a little warning sign.
Yeah, this is that moment, right? Seeing those strands day after day, it can feel pretty alarming for sure. But before we jump to any conclusions, let's put this into perspective with some actual numbers. So there's the number. Losing between 50 and 100 hairs a day is completely, totally normal. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like a ton of hair. But when you think about it, the average person has over 100,000 hairs on their head, so it's really just part of your scalp's natural cycle of renewal. The real key here, the thing you want to look for, is the pattern. Normal, healthy shedding is pretty consistent and it's spread out all over. The real concern pops up when the shedding suddenly gets way more intense or, and this is a big one, when you start noticing thinning in specific spots, like along your part or at the front and sides. That's the signal that it might be more than just the usual cycle.
So if your hair loss feels like it fits that more concerning pattern, the reason is often hormonal. And one of the most common culprits behind hormone-related hair loss is something called Polycystic Ovary Syndrome, or as most people call it, PCOS.
So what exactly is PCOS? Well, in a nutshell, it's a really common hormonal condition that affects women. And its effects aren't just, internal. They can actually show up in very visible ways, like with your hair and your skin, and it can impact your overall health in some pretty major ways, too.
So here's how it works. It's kind of like a chain reaction. PCOS can cause your body to produce higher levels of male hormones called androgens. And it turns out the hair follicles on our scalps can be super sensitive to this change. They react by shortening the growth phase for each hair, which means the hairs that do grow are thinner, weaker, and they fall out a whole lot faster than they should. There's actually a medical term for this, and it's called androgenic hair loss. And knowing this name is really powerful. It gives you the exact words you need to talk about your symptoms with a doctor, so you can be super clear that you're talking about hair loss driven by these androgens. But here's the thing, hair loss is rarely the only sign. So in this next section, we're going to look at how doctors piece all the clues together to get a clear diagnosis, because that hair loss is often just one part of a much bigger picture. Do any of these sound familiar? Along with hair thinning, things like irregular periods, stubborn adult acne, and even challenges with fertility are all classic clues that can point toward PCOS. A doctor is going to look at all these symptoms together as a whole. The process for getting a diagnosis is actually very straightforward. It all starts with just a conversation, talking about your symptoms and your medical history. From there, blood tests can give a crystal clear picture of your hormone levels, not just testosterone, but also insulin, since insulin issues can actually drive those androgen levels up. And then finally, an ultrasound might be used just to check the ovaries. It's a step-by-step process designed to get you a definite answer.
And this is absolutely crucial. A good diagnosis isn't just about finding what's wrong, it's also about ruling out other things. A doctor will check for other really common causes of hair loss, like low iron or vitamin D, thyroid problems, or even just high stress, to be 100% sure that PCOS is what's really going on.
Okay, so now let's turn a corner. Because once you have a diagnosis, the whole focus shifts from the problem to the solution. And the really great news is, there are a lot of effective ways to manage the condition and its symptoms, including getting your hair health back on track. So the best way to think about management is as a two-part approach. On the medical side, you've got things like hormonal birth control to help regulate your cycle, or special medications to block the androgens causing the hair loss. And at the exact same time, simple daily habits like using gentle shampoos, backing off the high heat styling, and giving your scalp a gentle massage to boost circulation, all of that can make a huge, huge difference. Now, I'm sure you've heard about supplements like biotin or zinc for hair. And while they definitely can be helpful for some people, this is so important. You have to talk to your doctor first before you start taking anything new. You really need to make sure it's what your body actually needs and that it's not going to mess with any other treatments you're on.
Okay, we've gone from that feeling of worry to understanding the why, from the symptom to the cause. So now, let's zero in on the single most important part of this whole thing, what you do next with all this information.
First, and I really mean this, please remember this, dealing with hair loss and the idea of a PCOS diagnosis can feel really isolating, but it is incredibly common. So many other women are going through this exact same thing. You are not alone. If you take just one thing away from our chat today, please let it be this. The hair loss isn't really the problem. It's the signal. It's the check engine light. The real way to take back control isn't by trying to fix just the symptom. It's by getting an accurate diagnosis. That is the true beginning of the solution. And so, that brings us right here to our final question, and this one's for you. Now that you have this information, what is your next concrete step going to be? Is it maybe starting to track your symptoms? Or is it picking up the phone to schedule that doctor's appointment to finally get the clarity you deserve? The power is now in your hands.